Hey, hey, hey. Time for the Out of This World story from rSpace. They say knowledge is power, but in this case, someone's PhD might come with a side of professional ruin and a very personal revelation. Today on rSpace, sometimes the more you learn, the more you wish you hadn't. Wife's affair with her college professor exposed when I found their emails. University Conduct Committee got involved. I hate that I used to be the kind of guy who would read stories over here and ask where you were all finding women like that. I was in a few relationships before I got married, and in all of them, they ended without my having been done dirty or anything. Because of that, I seem to have a pretty rosy opinion of women and their relationships. Sure, I knew people who were actually done dirty by women, but it seemed like it didn't happen that often. Silly me. I had to have it happen to me, and in my marriage, no less, before my eyes finally opened. I'm sorry for ever questioning the things that people go through. The worst part is that with women, it is so much harder to see their red flags from the start, because they can do a complete 180 within the marriage and then choose to go and sleep with someone else, maybe because they needed more excitement than they felt they were getting. I'm married to a 39-year-old woman named Hannah. That's her real name because I don't give a crap. She's the kind who's essentially like a constant academic. She's currently working on her PhD, and it is within the context of that all of this ended up happening. I've never not been in support of her academics. I'm a year older than her, and we got married 10 years ago when she was planning to start her master's program. So her going to school has been a major part of things. She's smart, so thankfully, a lot of the tuition gets knocked out thanks to scholarships and grants, but I pay off what remains. If you've ever had someone in your life who is dealing with a graduate degree, you'll know that a lot of time goes into that, especially if that person is doing a research program. Because of that, I understood when she was constantly on her computer, typing, sending emails, or on video calls. At the same time, it also made sense when she was at school for almost the whole day, including spending the first half of the day on weekends. There was absolutely no reason for me to think that something was wrong. I'm not an insecure guy, and maybe if I had been, I would have noticed that something was off. But being insecure in a long-term relationship would have caused issues long before what I found out. Hannah works very closely with a professor in the department, who we'll just call Coulson. She mentioned him a lot, but considering he was basically her research supervisor, there was no reason to think anything was off with that. I mean, the fact that I found out that things were off was purely because of luck, and it disturbs me that if that day hadn't gone exactly the way it had, I might not have discovered that the person I thought I was in a happy marriage with for a decade had been cheating on me. One night, she came back home and she seemed exhausted. She was working on her computer at the desk in her bedroom, and I noticed that she kept rolling her shoulders like she was uncomfortable. She had had a long day, so trying to be the nice guy, I offered her a massage. I started by massaging her shoulders in the chair she was in, and then we moved to the bed, and I continued to massage her back there. Before I knew it, she was lightly snoring. I took it as a compliment as to how relaxing my non-professional massage was. I went to help her switch off her laptop, but she had an email tab open, and it caught my eye. Part of me wishes that I hadn't let my curiosity win, but it did. Just so you know, I still had no suspicion. I was curious to see some of the work she was putting in, and when I saw her email conversation with Coulson, I opened it to see what kind of things they discussed. What I noticed was that this particular email address wasn't the kind that the university assigned to the professor, and I found out later that that email did correspond with her, and that one was only fully of formal conversations. The one that I found was just a Gmail address, and the first thing that caught my eye was how informal the conversations were. They seemed like the kind of things that you should have said over iMessage or WhatsApp. The last email from him was only, "Gotten home?" and she hadn't replied to it yet. It was sent that night. When I continued to dive through the entire thing, it became clear that the conversations weren't always talking about time in the university or working on research. It was obvious that there was something else going on. I spent the next 30 minutes diving backwards into their conversation, and I didn't even care that she was sleeping a few feet away. Honestly, if she woke up and saw it, I was prepared to just blow up at her right there. It was when I saw, "Same place as last week," that I decided to just send the entire email thread to my inbox, and I deleted the evidence from hers after that. I went to the living room and read through the entire thing, and it didn't take long for me to realize that she was 100% having an affair with her college professor. To say that I was infuriated would be an understatement. I felt like I was about to snap. I hadn't suspected a thing, and on top of that, I was paying part of her tuition and also doing all the work to keep our household afloat while she was a full-time student. The fact that I was making those sacrifices and she was out cheating with someone who was supposed to be better than that really sent me over the edge. The guy was at least 20 years older than her, based on the one time that I had seen him. I couldn't sleep that night. I spent the entire night overthinking. I had just given her a massage on a night when she might have just gotten back from sleeping with this guy. I felt like a cuck. It's hard to explain how much resentment I had for myself, especially towards every single moment when I had tried to go above and beyond for her. Clearly, it had been a waste of my time and my effort. When she came down the next morning and found me on the couch, she was concerned, but I just lied that I had woken up early. I really didn't know how to handle everything I had found out, and I didn't want to lose control of the situation. I have an idea of what I'm going to do, and I'm not going to waste time doing it, but I want to make sure I set the ball rolling for that before I let her know everything I know. That way, I'll be too far in to let her sway me. 10 years of marriage is a lot of love, and I don't want my weak part to win when it matters the most. What she did wasn't just cheating, it was calculated, hidden, and worst of all, it disrespected the foundation you built together. And doing it with someone she works closely with? I mean, a professor. Wonder how that extra credit will go. It's a slap in the face. You didn't deserve that. You're not a fool for not seeing it sooner. The best manipulators are the ones who make sure you never have a reason to look. Update 1. I wrote here a few days ago after I discovered that my wife of 10 years had been cheating on me with her college professor during her PhD program. You can read that if you want to see how I was feeling back then, but I'm glad that I'm feeling a lot better at this point. Maybe it's because there's been enough time for my feelings towards her to dull, or maybe it's because I've started to resent her. Maybe it's because I know that I'm set to make sure her life falls apart. I know that a professor sleeping with a student was never going to be something that would be allowed to slide if the university knew about it, because it presents such a massive conflict of interest. Especially because the professor she chose was directly supervising her work and had a say over her grades. So, without wasting time, I found the email address for the conduct board of her university and sent a report anonymously. It contained all the necessary information, including the entire email thread, which was the only evidence that I had. I hoped that it would do the job. The thing is, I understand that even if it is proven that the relationship is inappropriate, it is very unlikely that she gets expelled from the university due to the power imbalance that exists between a professor and a student. Anyway, as soon as I had that sent in, I went straight to figuring out a divorce lawyer. I called up one of my friends who seemed like the perfect person to ask. He had gone through 2 divorces, and in the last one, he had come up on top, big time. So I got a recommendation from him and met with the lawyer as soon as I could. Our meeting went well. I explained the entire situation as well as I could, and from that, he seemed confident that we'd be able to come out on top. He said that even in cases where he had to spin the husband to look like the good guy, he usually saved the day. In this case, I was the good guy, and it wasn't going to take much for him to get me to win. I'm not entirely trusting of lawyers, but I took his word for it. He let me know when everything would be ready to move on with the divorce. In the meantime, as soon as I saw Hannah, I let her know that I was done with her. I know I could have waited for the papers to be ready, but I felt that wasn't necessary. I couldn't spend an extra day acting obliviously. I told her that I wanted to speak to her, and as soon as she sat down, I told her that I wanted a divorce. She was so surprised. That's how I'd have expected her to react if she was truly faultless, but it wasn't surprising she reacted like that since she felt I was clueless. She kept asking if I was joking, but I'm sure that my face showed that I wasn't. Then she went from asking if I was joking to why, over and over again. I told her to think about it well. I asked her if she had done anything that could potentially be divorce-worthy. I saw her really think about it, and I'm sure her professor passed through her mind, but she only shook her head no at the end of it. Coulson? What about him? That was all I said, and I could see her nearly jump in her seat. I knew she considered lying and saying that she didn't know what I was talking about, so before she could, I just mentioned that I had seen the emails and there was no point in her attempting to lie. At that point, she got panicked. She started to explain that it didn't mean anything, that the close proximity to him all the time made things feel comfortable, and the affair had started on a day when she was vulnerable. She said he softened up after the first time, and that it was to the benefit of her academics. She said she was planning to stop it immediately after she graduated and that it was purely physical. She said it was even less than physical. She was trying to say it was transactional, but she didn't know how to put it. I didn't care. She was trying to explain things away, and I think she was doing a horrible job of it. Everything she was saying was only making it worse. I told her that I appreciated her explanation, but it wasn't going to save her or make the divorce not happen. She had been cheating on me for a long time, and her leaving her emails open was the only thing that made me find out. I let her know I was glad to be out of the misery that I didn't even know I was in. At that point, I stood up and let her know that I had already talked to a divorce lawyer and that we'd start the process soon enough. She didn't take that well and grabbed onto me as I tried to walk away. She was screaming that I couldn't go and that she was sorry for what she had done. She kept repeating that it was a mistake and that she loved me, I told her that I didn't feel loved, and if she really loved me, she wouldn't have cheated on me with someone who could have been her father. I had to push her off of me, and then I went upstairs and locked myself in her bedroom. A few hours later, I handed her a suitcase with most of her essentials and told her that she could come later to pick up the rest, but she'd need to come accompanied. She broke down at that point. It was late at night, so I told her she could spend the night on the couch, but she'd have to leave the next day. She didn't argue, thankfully, but she kept crying. The next day, I woke up and she was still there, which pissed me off. I paid her no mind, and she kept trying to talk to me, but I shrugged each attempt off. I left the house, and when I got back, she was gone. A few days later, I presented her with the divorce papers. There was more crying, but I didn't stick around for it as soon as she had finished signing. I was glad that she didn't put up a fight with that. Now, all that's left now is for me to finalize the divorce and learn whatever comes of the report I sent to the school's board. Update 2. This is me back with the tale of my cheating PhD wife. Well, I hoped that I'd have had a report on my divorce sooner, but that's still ongoing. Instead of focusing on that, we can focus on the fact that the investigation into her and Colson's relationship has concluded. As expected, finding out that a professor has not only been sleeping with a student, but a student who he has direct influence over did not go down well. Colson was terminated from his position at the university as a result of that, which made me feel good. It didn't matter how old he was, because he was her affair partner, so I was glad. He was old enough not to be doing that kind of nonsense. As for her, she wasn't expelled, but she had to be assigned to a new supervisor, which led to her research timeline being pushed back quite a bit. On top of that, the investigation requested that her previous work be examined in case favoritism from her affair partner had led to preferential treatment. Besides receiving a generic email from the conduct board telling me that the reported professor had been terminated, I found out the rest from Hannah herself. She was weeping as she told me, and she kept blaming me. I mean, I was responsible for it, but at the very beginning of the chain reaction, I wasn't the cause. I felt good because to me, it was simply her receiving the consequences of her actions. One thing she also doesn't seem to realize is that with her research pushed back, she will likely need to extend her time in the program, and with that, she'll need tuition. I wasn't prepared to pay that for her. It was even possible that the scandal could result in her scholarships being withdrawn since she wasn't a glowing recipient anymore. I just thought I should come and drop in with that update. Hopefully the divorce will be concluded soon, so I can be done with this whole saga. I'm tired. You were never out to ruin her. She did that to herself the moment she chose to cross the line. All you did was make sure it didn't go unchecked. And honestly, good on you. Actions have consequences, and it's not your job to cushion the fall for someone who is using you as a safety net. She can cry, beg, spin it as a mistake. But the reality is, she made a calculated decision over a long period of time, and now the fallout is just the other side of those choices. Update 3. Here's what should hopefully be the conclusion of the story of my cheating ex-wife who was a PhD student sleeping with a professor. She had some tuition reductions, but I was paying everything that was left and making sure that she didn't have to work alongside a busy academic schedule. I got repaid by her deciding to get plowed by her professor. I made sure he got fired and that her academic schedule got delayed. It was the most I could do. Now the divorce is finally over, and I'm so happy about that. However, I think the whole stunt I pulled with reporting their relationship to the university made her mad because she really tried to bleed me dry during the divorce. She said that she was dependent on me and that she needed support from me to continue her studies. I said that the average person her age would have been working, and she was the one who chose to pursue degree after degree. She could get a job like the rest of us. She claimed I was the one who pushed her to go to school. That was a lie. It was a lot of pointless back and forth. We eventually had to go in front of a judge because we clearly weren't going to agree on anything. Sadly, over there, I was ordered to provide spousal support for the time remaining for her studies. However, the good thing was that the support was for living expenses and had nothing to do with her academics. She'd have to figure out that part on her own. I got to keep the place where we lived and the car we shared. I was fine with that since we essentially weren't splitting anything. Most of the stuff we had was from my hard work, and I gave her a lot by letting her continually chase school. That was what made her happy, so she can take it with her to the next man she'll cheat on. Needless to say, when she realized that she was going to spend potentially 2 extra years on her program because of the setbacks her affair caused, she came to the house to start ranting at me. She made a massive scene, and it took everything I had in me not to throw her out. I told her that I'd call the police if she didn't settle. She said she didn't care. She claimed I had a right to pay for her tuition until she graduated. I told her she was foolish for thinking that because it was her actions that messed up the free ride that she had. I told her to call her parents or get a job like the rest of us, instead of trying to run away from adulthood. That part pissed her off and she tried to slap me, but I stepped back in time. I just laughed and I actually dialed the police at that point. She was out of the house before I was done with the call, but I was appalled at how far my opinion of her had fallen. I made sure to give the police a report when they came because it was way too easy for women to destroy the lives of men, and I wanted to make sure that wouldn't happen to me. She called me sometime later, and this time she wasn't aggressive. She was begging that we rethink things, saying that she was sorry for how things went down and all the things that she did. I made sure she knew that everything she was going through at that point was her dealing with the consequences of her actions, and I wasn't the one who led to them. She needed to understand that because I know how hard it can be for women to understand accountability. She calls me here and there, hoping I'll change my mind, but I won't. I'm already paying spousal support. There are better things I can spend my money on than her. She ruined what I thought was going to be a permanent facet of my life, but ultimately it is for the better. I'm glad we never had children because that would have made divorce a much bigger headache. There's no moral to my experience. All I can really say is that everyone should be vigilant. Watch your partners and make sure you investigate any suspicions you might have so you can save yourself a lot of heartache and run away as soon as possible. You made an important decision about accountability. Too often, people cheat and then scramble to avoid the fallout, blaming everyone but themselves. She's facing delayed graduation, lost scholarships, and a wrecked reputation. And while she may resent you for bringing it all to light, none of it would have happened if she had just honored your relationship. You gave her more than most partners would have, and her throwing that away is on her. Is it petty or justified to report your cheating spouse's affair if it costs them professionally or academically? Have you done something similar? Share your thoughts with us in the comments below. And thank you for joining us today on rSpace. Be sure to like and subscribe and hit that notification bell so you don't miss out on our next video. See you soon.